Ho, ho, ho! And welcome, everyone, to another episode of Streamed and Screened, an entertainment podcast about movies and TV from Lee Enterprises. I'm Terry Lipshetz, managing editor of the National Newsroom at Lee, and co-host the program with Bruce Miller, editor of the Sioux City Journal, and a festively long-time entertainment reporter. Does that make sense? Festively long time? I don't know.
Well, it could be one of those things like I've known Santa Claus before he was Santa Claus. That's how.
Oh, but we're here. It's the end of the year. We're kind of, we're sprinting into kind of time off and the holidays, but it's also a time of
Wait
year-end
a minute,
lists
you
and
give
everything.
time off? I don't get time off.
Well, yes, this is the season of giving. So let's give people some
Let's give
lists.
them a little something.
Yeah, we'll give them lists.
Want the
That
end
sounds
of
like fun.
Yellowstone? Should we tell you that? Right?
Yeah, so here we are. So we're going to be talking. We have back-to-back episodes that we'll be releasing here at the end of the year. This first one, we're talking TV, right?
The best of 2024, and there was a lot. And this was the hardest thing for me to try and make a list because there's so much that I'm leaving out, and then there's some things like What We Do in the Shadows, which I love and is ending its run. And I think, well, I put it on a number of years. Do I just let it go?
Yeah.
Oh, I like it, So there's a lot of stuff there that you can consider. And then if you really dug deeper into kind of the crappy TV stuff, then there's special programming. The Olympics were, I thought, very entertaining, and I enjoyed them, but they didn't go on the list. And the Oscars this year were good. But where do you start and where do you stop? So that's where it kind of hits. A handful of top favorites.
Do I?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I've enjoyed.
Like the news or, and then I also like the games between fill in the blank here, the Mets.
Yeah. I mean, I watch, I'm kind of all over the place with my viewing. I sometimes will wait, especially with some of these streaming shows where it's kind of week to week. I'll kind of maybe wait for them to pop up. So, I'll catch things. I don't even know if I started spewing off shows that I've really enjoyed this year. I don't even know if they were this year's or last year's in some cases. Because, for instance, right now, I'm kind of locked into The Old Man on FX, right? But that's what I'm on like episode 5 of season 1, which came out a couple of years ago. But they had a new season this year.
They did have a season this year, so I think we're all right.
Obviously, like Baby Reindeer, I just loved it. I of course, The Bear, the season 3, I thought was really good. I'm curious how that one's going to end up when, we move into next year's awards, because it definitely was not funny and it keeps on showing up in comedy categories. So, but if you told me it was a great drama, absolutely. And there's been other shows that I kind of struggled through. Like, I did like Shogun, but I wasn't hooked into it. It took me an eon to finish. Tokyo Vice, there's rumors that it's done. HBO, it was too expensive. They're not going to pick it up again. But there's also talk that it could show up on another channel if HBO definitely doesn't pick it up. So, and I think it was canceled, but it's one of those which I really loved it. I thought it kind of bookended the first season, which left me a little disappointed at the end, even though I thought it was really strong. There's been a lot of good stuff out there.
I look at my list. I wasn't kind to broadcast television. I didn't put a lot of broadcast shows anywhere. They're in my also rans. I liked Matlock. I thought Matlock was a really good kind of broad show that held my interest for more than a week. And I like St. Denis Medical, but I don't think it's really up to speed yet.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think those two have promise, but they're not on the top 10 list. In fact, if you looked at, I have a Netflix, like 3 or 4 from FX, a Max, 1 to 3 from Max, and a couple from Paramount.
Okay.
Well, isn't that weird that it's not any of the, like, PBS isn't on my list? I don't have, and I've watched all of them. So it's not like I selectively picking this. There was a lot of money spent in the ancillary areas. And so I think that's what got him the shot. But my number 10 pick, can I go to 10?
Yeah, go for it.
Column from Accounts. And if you haven't watched Column from Accounts, you must. This is on Paramount Plus, and it's about a couple that meet. And they made this in Australia. They write their own shows, they produce their own shows, they star in their own shows. But it's about this couple who are trying to, well, they become a couple. And we got the second season this year. They meet by hitting a dog. And then they don't know who the owner of the dog is. The dog needs to have surgery. It was $10,000 for the surgery. They kind of adopt the dog, and they end up with the dog, but they thought he needed a more substantial name, so they picked Colin from Accounts because it sounds like he would be worthy of it. And it's so cute. It's so delightful. It surprises you every time, and they all have relatives that are just nutty. And I do think that that's one that if you aren't watching some shows, this is one to put on your list. Line with the Bear. Again, it deserves to be on a 10 best list. It was number one a couple of years ago, but I think with the concept of not a single laugh this last season, pulled down. Then I had Day of the Jackal, which is from Peacock. Eddie Redmayne is the reason to watch that. It's a reworking of the Frederick Forsyth novel. It's great to see Eddie Redmayne in a different vein. I always see him kind of as weak people, and this one very strong. 7 was Hacks with Gene Smart, and I think they had the perfect season. And this is the one that was this last season where she's going to become the late night television host that she's always wanted to be. And I found it wasn't like where you're mad at her because she's mean and nasty to people. You kind of cheer for her. And Gene Smart is by far the best female comedian on TV today. We get to 6 is Alex Edelman, Just for Us. Did you see this?
Yes. This is an interesting one because it's not a series. It's not a limited series. It's not a weekly series. It's a single stand-up comedy routine, and it was hilarious, but it was also fascinating at the same time because it's not a typical stand-up routine where he just tells a series of jokes over a course of an hour. He tells a story. I mean, he basically tells a story of a time he went to a meeting of white nationalists, and he's Jewish.
Right. And then he never said that he wasn't one of them, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
But he was, and the little details that he brings out in the room, what the people are like, it speaks a lot to the divide that's in our country. I think it's one of those first steps toward bringing people together. I don't know that I would do what he did, but he has a fascinating way of telling us the story.
Yeah, it was really well done. He's an interesting character, and I hope to see more of him in the future.
And I would think we will. He's going to be on the new reboot of The Office.
Okay.
People like a reporter. The new Office is going to be set in a small town newspaper office. And they are trying to stay afloat in what they're doing. And it has the same kind of drivers behind the show, but a new cast. And he'll be one of the ones in there. We'll see how it works. 5, Landman. And we've talked about this. You heard from them. I think Billy Bob Thornton has found the role he meant to play. And I enjoyed it. I thought it was good. 10 episodes. If it ends there, I'm fine with it. Taylor Sheridan, you could see, was putting more emphasis here than he was in Yellowstone. If you watch the last couple of episodes of Yellowstone, he was in them. But I think he was trying to just turn that faucet off. I would not doubt that next year Yellowstone will be back with the people that are left. They will drive the ship, and there'll be a different kind of tone to it. You'll still get that Beth that you hated and Rip that will do whatever she says. But they got rid of the ones that were maybe causing trouble. So it's a fresh start. Landman was my Taylor Sheridan pick of the year. Number 4, The Penguin. Did you see this yet?
No, and I'm curious about this one because it's on, I have it in my to watch list on Max, but I haven't decided if I'm going to watch it or not. So
yeah,
should I?
Like it. You'll like it. If you remember the movie The Batman with Robert Pattinson, and they thought, let's spin this off and make this a series. There's enough here. So you get his origin story, but you also get Kristen Milioti, who is incredible. You remember her from
How I Met Your Mother. Yes.
How I Met Your Mother. She was also on Broadway in a musical once. She is so good in this. She's so kind of evil and juicy, and yeah. So you'll like her, not knowing that, she's not just the kind of girlfriend of or daughter of or whatever. That's one to put on the list. And when you find all those episodes that you've stored somewhere.
Is that a limited series because it's kind of bridging the Batman and the follow-up movie?
They can have another season. It all depends on availability and desire. And Colin Farrell says he'd do it again. So that says we'll see another Penguin. He worked on the makeup toward the end where it didn't look like it was that hard to put on, if you ask me. And you could throw him in the shadows whenever you needed to. So, walk, 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 walk. Number 4 was Penguin. Number 3, English Teacher. Remember English Teacher? You must have watched it. It's got to be on your must list because and I tell everybody, watch episode 6. Episode 6 is the best. It features Jen Lyon as this mother, this kind of, her at every school where she tries to run everything and run roughshod over the teachers. She's referenced in the first episode, and then she comes into the 6th, and it's brilliant how they bring her in and how she tries to rule the school. And I really think they need to make her a regular character in season 2. I would say put her on the school board immediately. She'd be perfect. And this is their way of kind of addressing, again, the discord that's in our country.
Well, and you know what? I should watch it because it's another FX for Hulu. I watch every single one of them, and I love them. Can we just eliminate all the other networks and just FX for Hulu for everything?
They are good. They are
so good.
And you know what it is? John Landgraf from FX, he's the head of FX. He knows how to pick talent. He knows how to let talent work on their own, not have interference from networks that sit around a table and make notes about a show that they have no skills. So why are you telling them how to make it when you don't know what they're making? That's why network TV isn't what it should be.
Right.
Because too many hands are trying to get into the soup. And it's amazing that something like Abbott Elementary turned out so well, because easily you could see the hands that could be there and say, but I really think we need to do here is, yeah. So just know that John Landgraf is the person who's behind all of these things. He's incredible.
Yeah.
He should be the head of all networks. And then we'd have great TV everywhere.
Well, and before we get to the next one, number 2 on your list, which is also an FX for Hulu production, there's another show that's going to be, it's in the works, and I think it's coming out in 2025, but it's Alien, right? That's an Alien program.
It's done by Noah Hawley, who's from Fargo. It'd be like doing an early Star Trek is what it amounts to.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that'll be huge in 2025. So look for that. Some of the people who were in Fargo are in this new Alien. Yeah, be ready for it. I'm excited. I have not seen anything yet, but when you know the people that are doing it and you say they'll be good, they'll do a good shot on it. So yeah, that's a big one. But the number 2 one is the one that you were a little on the wire, but you watched it all the way through.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And it deserves to be on the list because you see the money up on the screen. They worked with Japanese creators to make sure that this was honestly depicted, and it had that historic factor that maybe the 1980 NBC version didn't have. It deserves to be on. I didn't make it number 1, though. I made it number 2. Sorry. But number 1 is Baby Reindeer. A Baby Reindeer was such a shock. It was like, really? This is like, because when you look at that title, you go, Baby Reindeer. Oh, what is this? I'm not watching. Guy who looks like a reindeer and they make fun of him or whatever. And what it was about stalking and relationships. And it was based on a real experience. It wasn't, we can't say that it was the experience because I believe he's being sued for it. But Richard, a British comedian who had this kind of band who read into their relationship. And so he tells the story about that. And that is enough to keep you invested about what happens with this. Does he get rid of her? Does he, what happens? And then in the latter part of the thing, he reveals something about an incident earlier in his life. And I don't want to say too much more about that, but it's like, oh my lands, they've opened a vein. This is incredible. So what they were able to do with little money, unknowns, and Netflix was incredible. Guest of the year.
I can't disagree with Baby Reindeer being up there. It was good. It was such a bizarre show. It was just completely different from what we've seen prior. I would actually be disappointed if they tried to bring it back in a season 2. It had a moment and it worked perfectly as a limited series.
It's like Tiger King. You only want to see Tiger King once.
That's right.
It was so gripping. You wanted to see more episodes. And when they finally wrapped it all up, you felt, yep, I'm good. I don't need any more. I'm fine with this. And it won all the Emmys. So
Yeah.
I think it was the best of the year. And there were other ones that we need. Fargo had that drip over. They were in last year's, but then they had episodes that ran into this year. And I thought Fargo was still good. John Mulaney presents Everybody's in L.A., which was a kind of an experiment during Comedy Week in Los Angeles. And he brought on all these people. It was a talk show that we haven't seen in a long time. And they just talked about nothing. But they would also bring out things that are uniquely Los Angeles. And I think that'll come back this year, too. So you'll see another version of them. We'll see how good it is. But I like John Mulaney. I think he's very funny. I hope that he's found peace with his art. But so that's our list.
Yeah, no, it's solid. I mean, there's been a few other things that I've watched along the way. A limited series on the Donald Sterling situation called Clipped, which was it was so weird. I mean, and it's a real life story. It was an interesting look at how Donald Sterling kind of ran the LA Clippers and the controversy he ran into. The Veil on FX was enjoyable at times. You talked about Tiger King, the documentary Chimp Crazy. That thing was just crazy. We didn't need a season 2 of Tiger King, but I'm glad we got a season 1 of Chimp Crazy, if that makes sense.
I couldn't make it through Monster, the Menendez brothers story. I got what they were up to. And same way with Grotesquerie. When Ryan Murphy's hands on these things, you know that somebody's going to be naked pretty soon. And I think that's kind of the overriding thing with him. I did like his feud, however, with Truman Capote and the Swans. I thought a well-done piece. The American Sports Story. That was one that, okay, I get what you're doing, but. And so he normally would find a spot somewhere on the top 10 list because he spends money on his stuff. He gets big name actors. It looks good. And for at least 3 episodes, you're enthralled.
Yeah. I think my problem with the Menendez brothers one, I'm still not finished with it. It's one that I watched with my wife. We got really hooked early on. Those first couple episodes were really good. And now we're in that slog. And it feels like a lot of these documentary-ish style, dramatizations of real stories, they come out strong. The middle is just this hot mess that takes forever to wade through, and then you get a really strong resolution. And I kind of felt that way with the Aaron Hernandez story, where it was like 10 episodes. It probably should have been 4, and I didn't need to see every aspect of his life. Like, we get it. He took a few too many blows to the head, and things happen. But yeah,
I would want Ryan Murphy to do my life because it would be more exciting than it is. But the formula is there. And I think we saw it with Shonda Rhimes too, where, she has a formula for Grey's Anatomy and all those kinds of shows. And after a while you get, all right, I get what you're doing, but let's try something new.
right.
So
Yeah.
that's how the year goes. And there are, you look at some of the talk shows that were out there. There were moments with those that were great. There are specials, and that's kind of an odd term these days, because it used to be you'd always get like a Dean Martin special, or you'd get some big name Mitzi Gaynor, who died this year, would have Mitzi and her whatever best friends, or Shirley MacLaine, and they don't do that anymore. Now if they like that, it's Adele singing on top of a hill. That's as good as it gets. So we're missing variety in a way. But I do think in 2025, Saturday Night Live will have a kind of a documentary look at their run. That'll be a must see, because we want to look at where did that come from, how did it go, and what is the future?
I was going to mention that as kind of like a show. I wouldn't put it in my list of best shows of 2024. And we've had a lot of good guest appearances, where you get like Andy Samberg popping up. Adam Sandler just, shows up in a sketch. Obviously, a lot of Dana Carvey. So it's been fun seeing them. And I get the feeling that they're going to keep bringing back players from the past throughout the season to just kind of let them take a bow and celebrate 50 seasons.
We need Will Ferrell. We need Sherry O'Terry. We need Kristen Wiig. We need, there are a lot of them that are real landmark performers that need to be on there. So I like you. I'm looking forward to it. I get weary during the news. I think that's where they could shape that up a little bit. And now it looks like that's a place where they let the newcomer have a shot. They have kids that they don't know what to do with them, but they auditioned with something. So let's have them do whatever they auditioned with as kind of a special report from.
And if you think back to another featured player who ended up moving into stardom, who kind of used music on Weekend Update to really set himself apart, was someone who reappeared this week, and that was Adam Sandler. Like, he was sort of a bit role player his first season, but then all of a sudden showed up with a guitar on Weekend Update, and all of a sudden he became bigger than that. So I think there's a possibility for Jane to bust out.
Look at how Bill Hader had a moment with his news appearances. And you go, yeah, and then they used him in more skits and everything. So yeah, that's a good launching pad for some. So in that first year, they gave a spotlight to Andy Kaufman, and that's all he did. And it was like, wait a minute here, this is odd. We need to look at this. Here's something that we can capitalize on, perhaps. And he went on to have a good career.
Yeah, that's Bruce's list, top 10 of 2024. And we will be back again right before the new year with our list of top 10 movies.
When you're part of a military family, you understand sacrifice and support. So at American Public University, we honor your dedication by extending our military tuition savings to your extended family. Parents, spouses, legal partners, siblings, and dependents all qualify for APU's preferred military rate of just $250 per credit hour for undergraduate and master's level programs. American Public University. Value for the whole family. Learn more at apu.apus.edu/military.